Hey everyone, it's Bricks in College here, and welcome back to my channel. Today, I'm going to be talking about the fan submissions for the Bricklink Designer Program Series 4. As of the filming of this video, there's still time to vote on these sets. However, voting ends in just one day, and because of that, I debated whether or not to make this video, but I ultimately decided that I would make it, mostly as a way to keep a record of my thoughts and of what the best sets were. If you don't know what the Bricklink Designer Program is, then I would recommend checking out my previous video on the topic, which will be linked in the description. There were 235 designs submitted for Series 4, and a lot of these designs were really great, so I decided not to limit myself too much and selected 15 sets to talk about today. These sets are grouped by category, but in no particular order otherwise, and my criteria for selecting sets was just based on what I think is cool and interesting. Mostly, sets are also based on whether or not I would buy them, but occasionally there was a set that doesn't really fit into anything I have, but I still thought was cool enough to include on this list. The categories I have are vehicles, with the subcategories trains, followed by city vehicles, then boats, and then miscellaneous, and then a category for buildings, starting with realistic buildings, and then onto fantastical buildings. Timestamps for these categories should be on screen now. Now onto the sets. First up is the Cargo Train by Neo Sephiroth with 2,087 pieces. I think this is a great looking, realistic cargo train that looks like a more displayable version of many of the LEGO City cargo train models. The length of this train is impressive for only 2,000 pieces, and that can be shown in the second picture. The engine is nicely detailed and I like the color scheme, though I wish that there was actually space for a minifigure to stand behind the railing. Container cars are simple, but they don't need to be complex, and I like the colors of the containers, adding some more colors to the set. I also like the inclusion of this minifigure that seems to have illegally hitched a ride. The tank car is also fairly simple, but it looks pretty realistic. It seems like just the right amount of detail. I'm not sure if using Technic pins in this way is a legal building technique, but I like how thin it makes the support for the tank look. Overall, I think this is a well-designed and realistic set that's sure to have a presence with how long it is. Next up, we have the American Steam Locomotive by Stigend with 2,143 pieces. While this is only the engine and coal car of a train, it would still command a good presence on a shelf and look great on display. It's also motorizable out of the box, which is great for anyone with a train setup. I also like that this train is 8 studs wide. It gives it more presence, especially next to the Speed Champions I collect, and I want my trains to be bigger than my cars. My only gripes with this set is I wish it had a little bit more color. I know black is realistic, but even a few muted, darker colors would have improved it in my opinion. I also wish that there were slightly better pictures on the website, because I think the pictures shown don't really do this justice. A slightly better look can be seen in the YouTube video that the creator posted, which I'll link below. The final train I picked was the Wild West train by iLucky with 2,760 pieces. This is the same designer as the General Store from Series 1, and you can see that he has a passion for the Wild West. I like the engine with its silver and red color scheme, and I like the cow catcher that was built without using the official LEGO piece. The engine and the whole train feel a little bit worn down, which is similar to how the General Store looks, and I think is appropriate for Wild West sets. The coal car is simple, but I appreciate the use of red here and on the rest of the train, and while normally I would like to avoid stickers as much as possible, I think the stickers on the side here really add something to the set. Those same stickers decorate the passenger car. I like the brown ingot detailing on the side of the passenger car, and I like the space on the front and back for a minifigure to stand. Inside, there's also plenty of space. The green chairs look comfy enough for a long journey, and there are nice tables to place your things or eat. The middle two chairs facing each other look like they are a perfect place to get some business done, with the person sitting across from you. Possibly not so legal business. I think the designer may have made a mistake placing the studded surface on the wrong side for one of these chairs. I also like that the inside seems to have a width of 6 studs. It gives there plenty of room on the inside, and it means this is another 8 stud wide train. However, it doesn't look like this passenger car has any working doors, which is unfortunate. The last car is my favorite car, the stable car. I like the technique of sideways stacked plates to make the walls to add more detail. And the inside of this car seems realistically cluttered, which is something I also thought was true about the General Store. I also really like the functioning sliding door, and of course, it's always great to get more horses in my collection. The designer has also said that it shouldn't take too many modifications to be able to make this motorizable. I like the small bits of dead foliage by the train tracks. It adds a little bit more to the display of this set on a shelf. And finally, the rickety looking windmill and water tower are must-haves for any Wild West diorama. Overall, iLucky has made another great looking set. Now onto the city vehicles, we're starting with the automated side-loading garbage truck and Mochi Master with 482 pieces. This is a great looking garbage/recycling truck with awesome play features. Twisting one of the knobs on the back will first close the claws around a garbage can and then lift the garbage can into the body of the truck, all with just one mechanism. The other knob will slide the garbage that is in the truck towards the back of the truck. You can pretend like it's compressing the trash as it goes. Finally, when you reach the trash dump, the back of the truck can be lifted to dump the trash out. These are all really neat features to have, especially in such a small set. And this set is the right scale to be a perfect addition to any LEGO city. I also like that this set includes interchangeable recycling and trash logos. And this, along with the other 2 city vehicles that I selected, are great because they don't have as many pieces as many of the other sets on this list, which means they would probably be a little bit cheaper. LEGO may be hesitant to select this set because they recently came out with a Technic set that's very similar. However, hopefully they will see the value in having a system version of the set for people's LEGO cities. Next on the list, I have the Fire Truck by King Creations with 412 pieces. Now, this may be a surprising pick, and I even surprised myself a little bit by picking it, because LEGO is no stranger to making fire trucks. In fact, it's one of their most common types of sets. However, I think that this looks slightly more realistic than any fire truck they have done. The Bricklink designer program is mainly targeted towards adult fans, and that's exactly what this looks like. A fire truck that's not bound by the restrictions of LEGO City, and thus can have a little bit of added detail. And yet, this truck is still about 6 studs wide, which makes it a good addition to many people's LEGO cities. I appreciate the side detail of places to plug in hoses, the areas to store things on the side, and the back detailing with the yellow stripes running down it. The opening side doors is also a big plus. I wish 2 minifigs could sit side by side in the interior, but I don't think it's really possible at this scale. Instead, the interior is jam-packed with detail. I especially like the computer in the back so that the passenger has something to be working on while the driver is driving to a fire. Personally, I don't need the grill, but it's a nice addition of something to be on fire for the firefighters to put out, without adding too many pieces to the set. Next up is the School Bus by TLG with 651 pieces. At first I was going to pass this one up because it looked a little bit simple. But when I looked at it some more, I realized that I couldn't remember a time in which LEGO had made a school bus. And looking it up, I don't think that they have made a proper minifig scale school bus. Now, if it's something that they plan to do pretty soon, I wouldn't fault them for not picking this set. But otherwise, LEGO really could use a school bus in its portfolio, and I think this one looks great. Like I said, it's a little bit simple, but school buses themselves are a little bit simple. This has all the right details. The front is properly shaped, just like the school buses I remember, and the side has the stop signs to prevent cars from going too fast when kids are getting out. While the body is 8 studs wide, which might make it a little bit wide for a LEGO city, I like that the wheels are contained within the body instead of sticking out a little bit further. The door is more complex than I thought it would be, letting it slide out in a realistic way. And while the stairs may be a little bit too tall for the scale, school bus stairs did always look really tall for me when I was a little kid. I like that there are 2 rows of seats inside so that friends can sit next to each other on the way to school. I like the inclusion of a fire extinguisher and the emergency door, though thankfully I've never had to leave through one myself. This is an overall great looking build. Because it's only 651 pieces, I don't imagine it would be too expensive, and because it's 8 studs wide, I would love to display this next to my Speed Champions. Next, I'm moving on to boats, starting with the Merchant Boat by Nicholas Carlier with 1,933 pieces. This is a great looking, colorful, and slightly fantastical houseboat. I love the colorful design. This boat looks a little bit clunky, and it might not be the fastest boat ever, but it looks like a cozy place to live. And I think the house portion has great details. I especially love this window frame made with ingot pieces and macaroni tile pieces, the ornate looking second floor deck, the dormer window sticking out of the roof, and this little porch to fish from. Though based on where this ladder is, I wonder if the fishing line wouldn't just hit the dock. I also like this stairwell in the back and the ladder to the roof, showing that all parts of the boat are accessible by a minifigure. The outside of the boat, as well as the second and third stories, are appropriately stocked with goods to sell, and the second story has the wheel with which to pilot the boat. Finally, the inside of the ground floor has everything that would be needed to live in, and it's all very well detailed. The only things I don't like about this boat are that the back looks a little bit plain and makes the boat look a little bit stubby, and that I don't understand this porch on the right side, as there's no way to access it. Overall, this slightly whimsical merchant boat would make a great addition to my collection. Next up is the Imperial Frigate Minerva by Brick Perfection with 4,000 pieces, perfectly reaching the piece maximum for the Bricklink designer program. Now, this probably means that this set would be pretty expensive, but if any set deserves it, I think it's this one, just because of how grand and elegant this set looks. I think LEGO has been missing a ship like this in its portfolio for a while. The last set that I remember that was like this was the Imperial Flagship, back from 2010, which now goes for about $1,000 on the secondhand market. This set would be a massive, beautiful display piece. It's well detailed, with the front of the ship being slightly wider than the back of the ship, and the masts and rigging give it some great verticality. The front figurehead is well designed, and the back just looks beautiful, with this ornate blue and gold captain's cabin. Below deck, the ship also looks great. It has many cannons to fend off any attacks, and compartments to store treasure and goods. This barrel and this cylinder are actually a geared mechanism to be able to raise and lower the different anchors at different times. I would highly recommend checking out the video by the designer that shows how this works, because it's really impressive. The interior of the captain's cabin also looks great, and, well, it looks suitable for a captain. I wish this set was able to include some kind of hammocks for the crew to sleep in, but I understand that they couldn't fit that, especially given that the designer went all the way up to his piece budget. If this set does get selected, it's unfortunate that it'll be so expensive, but it's one of the larger sets that I would be willing to pay for, just because of how amazing it looks and how we haven't really had a good substitute for this set in many years. Next up, we have the 1890 Northwestern RR Steam Shovel by Sewing Knight with 668 pieces. When I saw this set, I immediately thought of the book Mike Mulligan and his steam shovel, so I wasn't surprised when I scrolled down to the description and learned that this was based on Mary Ann from the book, though the designer decided to make this his own shovel named Edgar. While I don't know much about steam shovels myself, I did like that book a lot as a kid, and this is a very good looking Lego version of a steam shovel, which is something that they haven't made yet. I like the usage of string and gears to make this look very industrial, as it should. It's not totally clear to me, but I think the gear in the back can be used to raise and lower the shovel. While normally I don't care much for small extra inclusions like these railroad tracks, I think it doesn't add a lot to the piece count, and it would be nice to put alongside a train that's using these tracks. Overall, this is a great set that wouldn't be too expensive. The final vehicle I have is really unlike any of the others I've shown off, and it's the Allterrain EXO vehicle by Suzumil with 949 pieces. This one really struck me with how interesting the design was. It looks like it would be a great vehicle for getting around foreign and unknown terrain. And I like sci-fi things that are just about exploration and science. I like the articulation in the legs, which looks like it would be used to get this over many difficult obstacles, and that lets the vehicle turn in such an interesting way. I also like the way it looks when the back is hunched over to either let an astronaut out or bring one back in. To be honest, I tend to prefer a closed canopy, especially for vehicles that are going to be on planets with atmospheres that we can't breathe. But luckily, this vehicle has a nice interior. While right now the interior is great, acting as a way for the astronauts to relax or to get some work done, I could also very easily modify it to be the place where you pilot the vehicle. Based on this picture, maybe you can breathe the atmosphere on this planet. I also love the way these alien trees and plants were designed. They're fairly simple, but I imagine they would be very interesting to study. And I love the usage of the lavender and purple leaves. This is a creative design, and I would be very happy if it was chosen to be a set. Now I'm going to move on to buildings, starting with the more realistic buildings. The first building is the Lifeguard Lookout by Ballistic Bricks with 679 pieces. This is another set on the smaller side, and it depicts a nice beach scene. The lifeguard cabin is instantly recognizable, and the coloring is pretty rare for Lego buildings, but looks quite beautiful. I also love the tree design, especially with the 3 different shades of green in the leaves. I think this set would go well with the Snack Shack from Series 1, but it also would go well by itself or with any other beach collection. Beach items are great things for dioramas because they can work well in a Lego city, but also they can work well with very few items, since beaches are mostly just flat. I like the little details around the lookout as well, such as the sandcastle, the crab, the clam, and this beach chair on the side. If this set does get selected, I hope that they include a minifigure or two with it. But overall, this is a beautiful little build that should fit well into many different dioramas. Next up is the Sunset Ranch by Brent Waller with 2,112 pieces. This is a pretty Adobe-style Mexican house, which Lego hasn't really made, except for as a gift with purchase, which wasn't minifigure scale. I love the colors used here. I'm sure it's helped by the background being a similar color, but this looks like just a very calm place to live. And I like the blue accents around the doors and windows on the mostly yellow house. I'm also a big fan of the foliage, and I like how it's the less saturated green that is commonly seen in more deserty areas. The inside of the house has an appropriate level of detail, though I'm not sure where the kid sleeps or where this family uses the bathroom. But overall, it's well furnished, and I especially love this shelf that's hanging down from the ceiling on the first floor, as well as the grandfather clock in the background. The entire outside is well detailed and looks realistic, and I'm a big fan of this cow skull build. Also, as always, it would be nice to get more Lego animals in my collection. This is one of the sets that I'm not 100% sure if I would buy because I don't really collect houses, but it was too beautiful not to include in this video. Next up, we have the Fire Lookout Tower by Distracted Builder with 1,372 pieces. This is the same designer as the person who made the Snack Shack from Series 1. The tower looks pretty accurate. I like the height so it can see over the trees, especially with one of the trees there for scale. And I like the balcony that they can walk around and look out over, even peering through a telescope on one side. Though it looks like there's nothing preventing them from just falling onto the stairs at this edge. Distracted Builder seems great at doing small details. I love this little chimney detail made with a knight's helmet. The inside of the tower seems like a perfect place for a fire watch person to live and work with his dog. You can see details like this hot plate, a coffee machine, the furnace, a desk with a computer and a radio on it, and this creative camera design. None of these are quite as impressive as the Fryer from the Snack Shack, but they all look great for this build. I think all the little side builds are also great uses of pieces. This truck is simple, but I don't think it needed any more detail than this, and it provides a way for the fire lookout person to get in and out of the wilderness. This campfire is simple and is needed to have something to put out. The porta potty looks good and inside looks appropriately gross. This generator is a great looking build and explains how the fire lookout person gets electricity so far away from the grid. The desk looks appropriately cluttered, and this picnic table is just the right size for these two older hikers to be able to sit down and have a break. Overall, this is a great looking build, and it would fit in great with many of the other outdoorsy sets that LEGO has been making recently, such as the treehouse or the A-frame cabin. Now on to the more fantastical buildings, starting with the Riverside Scholars by Hanwha's with 2,692 pieces. This is the same designer as the Mountain Windmill from the Invitational series and the Ocean House from Series 2. And all these buildings are part of a story world that the creator made for their kids. These all follow a similar colorful and fantastical design. I love the look of buildings built around a stream or waterfall, which this set achieves well. The set has a lot of color, from the orange tones of the buildings, to the green foliage, to the blue water. Around the back, the set has a nice interior. There are books all over the place, as is appropriate of a place where scholars live. There's an astronomy tower for watching the stars, and the basement seems to have some potion-making materials. Although the skull makes me wonder how innocent these scholars really are. As you've probably noticed, I'm a big fan of cluttered and well-detailed interiors, which this set definitely has. I do wish that this area with the seats was covered, because I imagine I'd get quite wet reading directly uncovered next to a waterfall. But I guess that's why the scholars have these large hats. I think this set would make a great piece on its own, and if you have one or two of the other sets that Hanwha's made, this would also make a great piece alongside them. And finally, the last set on my list is the Atlantis Research Base by Jazzle with 2,913 pieces. This set combines many of the things I love in a design. It's a nice standalone piece that's very modular. It has clean futuristic aesthetics and also the colorful beauty of the underwater world. This set is creative and, as I mentioned I like before, it's science fiction based on science, not violence. I like the modular design. Not only does it inspire creativity for people who get this to be able to create their own designs, but also it lets you display it in a number of ways, and it makes it fit better on whatever display space you have. In addition, each of the modules is creative and well designed, and all the modules needed for people to live and work here are present. I'm especially a big fan of the seating area with books and relics, and the giant mech suit drop chamber. The set is also appropriately sealed for an underwater base, and there are airlocks for the section where the submarine can attach. Overall, this is a beautiful and creative set that I would love to pick up. So those are my favorite sets from Series 4. I hope that some of the ones I chose here end up getting chosen to be made into actual sets. Let me know if you agree with my picks, or if there are any that I missed out that you think are also cool. There are plenty of other great submissions in Series 4, and it was difficult to narrow it down to just these. Once the actual sets are picked, I'll make another video discussing my thoughts. Until then, you can expect another video out soon about Series 2 and 3, and I have some more videos in the works that are not related to the Bricklink Designer program. Thank you so much for watching this video. See you next time and have a great day.